Hi, you're listening to God, Ghosts, and Government, a weekly conversation with Senator Kim Jackson, where she'll reflect on her journey as an Episcopal priest, farmer, first-time state legislator, and much more. I'm your host, Sharitha J., and I'm honored to share this space with you. Let's begin. Hey, it's your girl Sharitha J, and I'm back for another episode of God, Ghosts, and Government with Senator Kim Jackson. You know how we do. Let's go ahead and get into it. Senator Jackson, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. I'm a little tired. It's Thursday.
It's Thursday, yes.
When we're recording it, which is basically my Friday because we're not in session on Fridays. So I'm tired, but otherwise I'm good.
Fair enough. Well, listen, we're going to honor your time and honor your ability to get some rest, even though I know that you have other obligations after this. What's coming up?
Yeah, I'm gonna be on Lawmakers tonight, which for people who don't have TV like me, I didn't know it existed until I was on it. It's a thing that comes on the TV at night.
A thing that comes on the TV.
It's a show that comes on GPB. On TV at night, and I do know that people watch it because I always get text messages whenever I'm on it saying, oh, you're on TV, but I personally have never seen it myself.
We're gonna let that one slide.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good idea.
So you're gonna be on Lawmakers tonight, and what does that typically look like? Because this isn't your first time being on Lawmakers.
It's my first time this session, though.
Correct.
So it's fun. It's the thing where they do like my hair and makeup for me, which I think is exciting now. I used to just think it was, but now it's exciting. And I'll talk about hemp. I'll talk about one of my bills. So
okay,
it's a part of how they do it is they kind of look and see what bills have been dropped during the week, find something interesting. Apparently hemp is still of interest to them, and so I'll talk about my hemp bill.
Okay, excellent. So we will wait for the episode to drop in order to hear a little bit more about the hemp bill, but we're looking forward to checking that out. Now, speaking of bills,
yes,
you're in session. This is week 4, so I'm guessing by now you've actually heard more bills this week?
If by more you mean we've voted on one bill on the floor, yes. Actually, I correct that. 2. We've voted on 2 bills on the floor.
Okay.
But I have heard bills in committee. I think that's your point. Yes.
Yes.
To your point, I have heard more bills in committee.
Okay. So tell us about those bills, because, I mean, I know there has to be I'm assuming quite a few at this point, or building up to it. If not, it's going to be a heck of a crossover day if this is the speed that we're going.
Yeah, so we are moving very slowly, but I have heard some bills. I heard several bills in public safety. I think what we're getting a foretaste of this week, what I received a foretaste of in committee, is where the Republican Party is moving as it relates to dealing with issues of crime. And the direction that they're moving is back to mandatory minimums and harsher, longer sentences. They're moving back to these things that we have already figured out, and there's a lot of data and science that says this doesn't work. Longer sentences doesn't deter crime. It only increases mass incarceration. Having mandatory minimums where judges cannot overrule those and say there are extenuating circumstances that make me say, no, we shouldn't lock that person up for 10 years as a mandatory. They're stripping those things away, and I think we're going to see more and more of those types of bills all session long.
Wow. Can you speak to what you think might be the motivation behind that?
Yeah, so there's been an increased awareness of violent crime, not just in our city, but across the state. Okay. So while homicides I think are holding fairly steady, there is a lot of news around crime. And so people, the mayor of Atlanta, the governor, these folks have made commitments to address crime. And instead of addressing issues of, say, I don't know, poverty, addiction, lack of access to mental health care, fill in the blank, instead of addressing it in that way, they're going and leaning on these old school tools of let's lock them up and lock them up for a long time and lock them up because we're mad at them. And that's so far been their only solution. And, you know, the other piece I want to name about that is that violent crime has increased along with the use of guns in those violent crimes. But there's been no talk about saying, well, maybe we should require people to have permits. Maybe we shouldn't believe in guns everywhere. That has not been the conversation. Instead, again, it's let's lock them up forever, lock them up as long as possible. And for some people, we'll even surveil them for the rest of their lives.
Wow. And as we know, that has, I mean, just a ripple effect. Just really and truly, that can change the course of someone's life completely.
Yeah.
So.
And people's families, right? Like, these folks who get locked up for 10, 15, 20 years, many of them are parents. It's somebody's son, it's somebody's daughter, right? Like, they're significant consequences.
Yeah.
And as we look at increasing rates of incarceration for women in particular, we're finding that there are more and more children who are essentially orphaned because of an institution. They've been orphaned because their mother is institutionalized in a prison. And so it's compounding, and it costs us money. And we know that children who have a parent who is incarcerated, that those children need more resources. They're more likely to get in trouble, more likely to follow in that same path of their parents, especially if their parents are locked up for a long period of time. And so there just has to be better solutions.
I agree. Well, you just named that this costs us money. So I think that's an excellent way to segue into an update on the budget. Last episode, we talked about us having a flat budget for the first time in a long time, correct? So where are we this week? Are there any updates, any changes?
Yeah, so the House actually just passed their budget this week.
Okay.
And that means it's coming to the Senate. We'll begin to kind of put our finishing touches on it. And yeah, we talked about this in last episode. The governor has his own economist who has projected that our revenues are going to be flat. And so he's asked all the agencies to not ask for any additional money. But there are tons of other economists out there who are just like, you all have money. Remember we talked about the billions with a B?
With a B.
Yes. You all have money. And, I just got off the phone earlier today with a constituent whose brother is in jail, DeKalb County Jail right now. And he's mentally ill. The judge knows it, said as much. And the judge's advice to her was, go lobby the legislature for more funding for beds for mental health. That is the only thing, that's the only tool that the judge had to offer to this man's sister, was go lobby the legislature for more funding. That's how desperate, that's how bad things are.
Wow.
Are that judges are saying to family members, I can't help you. There's no money, there are no beds. I know this person doesn't need to be in jail, but I can't let them on the street because they're mentally ill. But I can't put them in an institution to receive the care they need because there's no beds. Go lobby the legislature.
It's just an ongoing cycle. It's just an ongoing cycle. I mean, I don't know if you have the answer, but I'm curious as to when does this stop? Like, when do we try something different?
Yeah. Well, I hope and remain optimistic. Last year was the year of mental health. We did pass some really important legislation to help try to untangle this knot of a mental health delivery system that we have. So I am hopeful, but when we have a governor who says, let's keep the budget flat and isn't necessarily investing more dollars into what we know is a very broken system, then it's troubling. I had a conversation, so I don't know, those of you who listened last season, we talked regularly about the introduction of 988, the number 988. It's a number that you can call for a mental health emergency, right, for a crisis. Well, I just talked to someone the other day who is in DeKalb County, and they said, it was a slow start. But we're answering 900 calls a day.
900?
900 a day.
900 calls a day. Wow.
A day.
Wow.
And so to not have a budget that reflects this clearly great need is a problem. So I anticipate, I know in fact that the Senate, we will put more money towards this in our budget. We'll see how it all flushes out in the end, if there will be more, but we're advocating for additional funding for more beds, additional funding for more crisis units, so that instead of police coming with crisis units with mental health teams can go out and respond across the state. You know, there are things that we're asking for that we're trying to put into this quote flat budget because we know that there are billions of dollars left, and we'll just see how it goes. But the need is great, and I'm deeply troubled and saddened that it's not an easy fix. Because I know, I mean, I heard her voice, the sister. I mean, it's hard, you know, when you're listening to and talking to somebody who's real life. You know, this sister so desperately wants what is good for her brother. And she just said flat out, if he stays in jail, he will die. He's not taking his medication. He weighs less than 100 pounds because he refuses to eat. He's literally withering away. And we have no bed for him to get the treatment he needs.
It's tough. I, as you know, we've had parishioners at Common Ground who have been released without the support of their medication or any other systems in place to help with the transition with being released. So it's also just really hard to hear that on the inside they're not receiving the care that's needed as well. And I know it can't be pinned on one person or one entity, but these issues are important to name and to highlight. So
yeah, I mean, the reality is a jail is not a hospital.
it's not.
Even though they have more people who are experiencing mental illness than our hospitals do. And they'll tell you that, right? Jails across the state house more people who are experiencing mental illness than our actual hospitals do. And they just can't care for these individuals because that's not what a jail is made for. You know, the other alternative that was given to the sister was to get him a placement at Georgia Regional, which is our hospital for those who need psychological assistance. The wait time, guess how long that is?
A year.
Exactly.
I just look, educated guess. Educated guess. An entire year.
Entire year.
But he's already wasting away.
He doesn't have a year.
Yeah.
He does not have a year of life left in him to wait. And so, yeah. I feel like I'm just complaining, so maybe we should...
Well, no, it's not a complaint. It's an awareness. And so we're 4 weeks into session, and this is a part of the pace. I know that we will have more exciting things to talk about, like the barnyard update, because I always look forward to it. And also, I mean, just listening to you process these things more and more, not that you haven't done this before, but I feel like this is truly where that pastoral care shows up, where that God moment continues to just kind of dwell within that space. So it just is what it is in week 4.
Yeah. Well, I will say to that point, and thank you for framing it as a God moment. You know, the sister, and this is not her real name, we'll call her Natalie just to make it easier. You know, Natalie called my office. I spoke to her in person 2 weeks ago because she emailed, and I felt compelled to call her instead of writing. And she called back, and she was actually talking to my assistant, Tina. Shout out to Tina. She's amazing, and she's great. And I heard that, I heard Natalie's voice, you know, on the phone, and I could not talk to her. And I know a lot of representatives and a lot of senators and a lot of people would just say, let me leave that with my admin. She's the one who does constituent services. But, and that's no knock on others who don't answer the phone. But for me, as I heard Natalie telling the story and struggling to find solutions and answers for her brother and her relentlessness in advocating for him, I had the phone I had the phone transferred to my office so that I could talk to her, so I could hear her voice, but also so she could hear mine. And that she would know that even though I don't have easy answers for her, that she's not alone in trying to help her brother. So yeah, thank you. I mean, I know I complained a lot, but thank you for lifting up the ways that is me being my best self in the midst of what's really a tragic story.
Well, to our followers, as always, it's a good time to check in. If you haven't already done so, please connect with us at Kim for Georgia to check out what's happening with Senator Jackson and all these events that are taking place, and to keep up with God, Goats, and Government. You'll find us there on her social media, on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Kim for Georgia. That said, Senator Jackson, it's February.
Oh, it's Black History Month. I know that's where you're going. It's Black History Month. You're right.
It's Black History Month. And, you know, we're going to be upbeat about it because, well, it's Black History 365. But
that's right.
It's February, so we officially will celebrate this on the calendar. I have to ask, do you have anything coming up this month for Black History Month? Because you are Black History.
Well, Sharitha, yeah, I guess I am. That always, every year that you say that, it throws me off. I will do a point of personal privilege to celebrate and acknowledge Black History Month later in the month. We all take turns every day honoring a particular person or some event within Black history, and so I will do that later on in the month. And we've kicked off on our social media. We've been highlighting Black history moments across the Cabin County. I will say, as uncomfortable and awkward as it makes me feel for you to look at me still in my 30s and say that I am Black history. I'm young. My team, who helps with social media, posted as well. And the first post that they did for Black History Month was celebrating Senator Merritt, Senator Halpern, and me as Black history makers for being the first, all three of us at the same time, serving as the delegates, the chairs for our delegation for our respective counties. And so even my own team insists on making me feel like, because when I think about Black history, when you think about Black history, are the pictures in your mind in black and white?
So that's what we're gonna do on social. We're gonna start putting Senator Jackson in black and white. All of it, you know, while she wears her Big Daddy hats, staring off. So, but yeah, I mean, yes, but that's the point of this time, and even with this podcast, it's an archive of your story.
Sure.
And what you're experiencing, it matters. Someone will come across this, we don't know who, but it could be even your constituents, and you are going on record at such a time as this. And so your history, your path, it matters, and it makes a difference. And I'm gassing you up, but it's the truth. It's not just because it's your podcast, but it's the truth. You are out here making a difference, and it's the reality is, folks, Senator Jackson, titles aside, she is a down-to-earth person and would do all the things that she's doing within her power without any of those titles. So just because you do have the titles, you are using your power to make a difference. And so I'm giving you a shout out in person, giving you your flowers while you are here to receive them. So,
well, thank you, Sharitha. And as awkward as it is, I do recognize, and people reach out. I don't know if you know, there's an exhibit of, I think there are 13 out in the South, kind of LGBTQ history makers. And the exhibit is at the Center for Civil and Human Rights outside, and I'm featured in that. And so, you know, I do periodically get emails and phone calls, mainly DMs in my social media, to be honest.
Who's sliding in your DMs?
People slide in my DMs because they've gone down to the Center for Civil and Human Rights, and they've seen the exhibit in which I'm featured, and And people do talk about getting strength from that and feeling feeling hope and encouragement for what the South is, that there can be this LGBTQ, this, out queer woman, Black woman, who is serving in our state legislature. So I don't take that lightly, and I'm really grateful and honored to be able to be that example for others in the same way that others were an example for me.
Excellent.
Now I want to say,
okay,
when you were saying that I'm down to earth, I thought you were gonna give like a real example, not of like all the. I thought you were gonna be like, she's so down to earth. She actually helped me move apartments, y'all.
Yo, let me tell you that this a real one right here. Cause she is. We won't go down the path, but you are that down to earth. That because I did have an emergency move, and who did I call? Senator Kim Jackson during session. And she still made time to come and help. So, yes, you are down to earth in that way. And thank you, because I could not lift my back and what have you. But thank you
that's
so
why
much.
I CrossFit, so I can help you move. And that's why I have all the tools, because I definitely showed up with lots of tools.
Lots of tools. Down to earth. Down to earth. So, well, Senator Jackson, again, deep gratitude to you, but you know why I'm here.
What you want to know about the barnyard?
What's going on at the barnyard? It's raining
Sure.
and all these things, and it's February, and so the weather is getting cold. It's cold this time of year. I know we're in Georgia, so it fluctuates, but what's happening? How's your crew adjusting? I know we talked about Carolina. Like, what's going on? What's going on at the barnyard this week?
Yeah, so not a whole lot. So the thing is, ducks absolutely love rain, right? So they are loud and noisy, and I think people probably think, I don't know what people in my neighborhood think about those ducks, because they are very loud when it's raining. But then the goats, on the other hand, hate rain. So I'm barely seeing them, right? Like, they'll kind of run out, eat some food, and then they just like duck back into their little things. So there's not like a whole lot there.
They sound like teenagers.
In some ways, they're real moody like that. And I will say, like, this is one of the busiest times of my life. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna make a confession that my wife doesn't know about yet, but she's gonna know when she listens to this podcast. See, what had happened was, my wife asked me to go to the feed store to get food for these beloved animals that live in our barnyard. And I did that. That I did perfectly. Went to feed store, got the feed. And then the next step in that process should be to, put the feed into the places where their feed belongs.
Logical.
It's a logical thing. But I've been so busy, I can't tell you doing what, but I've been so busy that I unloaded the feed out of the back of the truck into a wagon, and then I left it in the middle of the driveway. And then it rained a lot for a long time. So I did what my wife asked me to do. I saved her a trip from having to go to the feed store herself.
That's what you did, huh?
Except I just, I had 200 pounds of feed that got ruined by the rain. So that's my life right now. That's just, balls are being dropped.
Okay.
There's some absent-mindedness that's happening, but our animals are not starving. I can tell you that. Trina definitely, she doesn't know what happened with the feed. She just knows it's not there. So it's our animals aren't hungry. That's all I'll say about that.
Okay. Well, that said, we're going to honor your time so that you can, free your mind and your body, get some rest a little bit, because I do know that you are heading off to do Georgia Lawmakers, and perhaps in the meantime, in between time, you can use your CrossFit skills to get that feed that probably is now just extra heavy.
It is.
From the rain. Just bring it up. It's a cycle. Just bring it all together. But we're gonna honor your time, and thank you for making space to let us know what's going on here under the Gold Dome. We're coming to you from the Senate Press office again, and we're grateful that you are making space to just keep us up to date with what's happening during session. That said, I always have to check with you.
Sure.
Are there any other updates for our followers that you want to give?
Yeah, so just really quickly, legislatively, know that there are bills being dropped every day, some of which will sound really terrible and heinous and bad for our state, that might relate to elections or criminal justice deformity versus reform. But don't be alarmed. Like, let's watch and wait and see. I'll let you all know if those things actually get a committee hearing, if they're actually showing any movement. I think a lot of people drop bills just to raise alarms. And I've learned that in the past 2 years, to just like not let my heart rate increase just because the news is like, so-and-so just filed, this bill that would make it so that police officers can do whatever the hell they want to whenever they want to, which is a real bill that has been dropped. So don't get alarmed. Stay tuned. We'll continue to let you all know as things become more and more real and more likely about what action items and steps may need to be taken in order to defend our democracy and in order to defend this great state in terms of helping us move forward. So calm down, folks. We're okay right now. And I'll let you know when it's time to pick up the phone and start calling and emailing people.
Okay. Watch, wait, and see. You heard it from Senator Jackson. Lastly, I do want to point out, she's so down to earth, you guys. She's drinking what is this, an AHA? Now, I personally appreciate a Mr. Pibb Extra, but...
So real quick. So I was drinking this on the floor, the AHA, and they could only see the A. And so Harold Jones, the Whip Jones, leaned over to me and was like, "Are you drinking an IPA on the floor?" It's like, no, it's not, but that...
It's too early in the session for you to drink an IPA.
I would never drink an IPA on the floor. Ever.
On record.
I'm classier than that, guys. And I sure as hell wouldn't leave it in the can. Like, come on. So, anyway, that's an aside. I love AHAs. Mm-hmm. It is my drink of choice that has nothing in it besides water. So,
gotcha. Well, Senator Jackson, thank you for your time. You guys have been listening to another episode of God, Goats, and Government.
Until next time, like, subscribe. Hey, and can you guys leave a comment so that people will know that this is a really great podcast? Thanks. Be easy.